cool. You clicked the video. Good choice. Okay, anyway. You probably know what we're here to talk about. Of course, it is the highly anticipated sequel to 2019 Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the recently released Jedi Survivor. And I really just kind of want to talk about this thing just in general as a whole, pretty much wherever my thoughts take me in regard to this game. So you might get a little of what's good about it, what's bad about it, and what's just an indifferent fact. But before all of that, I do want to say that I won't be talking about spoilers here, so no need to worry about that. I'll be avoiding mentioning any major plot points. You might see some light/minor spoilers in the gameplay footage, but all the gameplay that you'll see is from very early in the game. I'm talking first 2 hours of the game early. And also, I know you already clicked the video, so I may be pushing it here, but I am gonna ask you to subscribe. I know, I'm sorry, but I have to ask. But okay, enough of all this bullshit. Let's talk about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, one thing that is sort of interesting about me initially going into this game is during its entire rollout and lead up, I was not nearly as hyped for this game as I could have been. Because I am a huge Star Wars fan. It's probably my favorite fictional universe through its ups and downs. My opinions of all things Star Wars could likely sustain a separate YouTube channel. But for whatever reason, I just wasn't feeling the hype of Jedi Survivor. Although I always knew I was gonna buy it, obviously. And the reason that I wasn't feeling the hype might have been because the first game was so great that I subconsciously assumed they'd largely do the same thing with just a few quality of life adjustments. And here I am now, having played Jedi Survivor for a little over 20 hours and being so happy at how wrong I was in those assumptions. Yes, this is one of those everything is better situations for a sequel, where everything, and I do mean everything, from the first game is back and better. But it's so much more than that. Everything isn't just better, everything is expanded. And not filler, not stretching, not needless padding. I'm talking about meaningful expansion. It's everything you wanted the first game to be and more. So let's go back to everything is better really quick and get into a couple of specifics. I'll start with a small one. When you climbed in the first game, you used to have to press a button to grab on to climbable terrain. You couldn't just jump at it and Cal would instinctively grab on like any other game. It was very small but very annoying that you had to press a button. And now that's gone. Cal just grabs things when you jump at it now. It's small, but thank you. And as for not so small things, they improved and fine-tuned the difficulty of the game. And interestingly enough, they did it with what might seem like two inconsequential changes. The first one is they changed Cal's slow ability, where he suspends enemies in slow motion, into an ultimate ability that charges up over time. So you can't just freeze the strongest enemy 3 times in a row and keep beating them over the head with your heavy force attack. And speaking of the force attack, it is dramatically weaker than it was in the first game. And these are great changes because in the first game, while your options were more limited, you still had some insanely powerful options that made quick work of pretty much everything. The aforementioned combination of slow and force attack in the first game was insane. I played Fallen Order again about 2 months ago and just breezed through that game, and I fought everything, and I was playing on the same difficulty I played this game on. And for anybody wondering, there are 5 difficulty options in Jedi Survivor. There's Story, Jedi Padawan, Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, and Jedi Grandmaster. I played on Jedi Master, and it was a lot of fun, and there are a couple of really challenging optional bosses too. Obviously, your difficulty experience may vary based on which difficulty you choose, but that's why difficulty options are there, for accessibility's sake and the sake of fun. And other things that help the difficulty of this game as well are the removal of a couple of skills in the skill tree that just flat out increase how much damage you do. Like I said, Fallen Order was overall a great great game, but there were some quick options in the game that would lead to you feeling wholly OP entirely too fast. Now, I'm doing all of this jabbering about changes to difficulty, but simply making the game a bit harder might not be cool to everyone. But that's okay, because with new challenges come new tools to combat them with. And what's to be said, really? Cal's loadout is just so much more diverse this time around. For starters, there are now 5 lightsaber stances Cal can use, compared to just the 2 he had in Fallen Order. But again, not to be too OP too fast, you can only equip 2 stances at a time, but they can be freely swapped in and out at meditation points. And some of these new stances are so much fun. But beyond that, there's also Cal's force powers, which have also seen a sizable expansion, to the point that it's easy to forget that you can do certain things once you kind of find your own playstyle, but that's what's great. Even if you forget because whatever ability you've forgotten isn't conducive to your playstyle, those tools are still at your disposal if you find yourself in a bind and are thinking, okay, well, what else can I try? You mix all this with a wider pool of enemies, many of which have exploitable weaknesses to certain abilities, and you just get some absurdly satisfying combat. And things like new movement abilities and lightsaber stances are dished out to you in such a perfect drip feed that you feel like you always have something new to play with. And by the time you get something new, you've probably been neglecting some other ability anyway, and so you might have stuff in the ability backlog that you want to try out. The overall doling out of ability and power-up pacing is just outstanding. Then there's the world itself, which is expanded by literally making the expanses bigger. But of course, more than that is making those expanses interesting. And Jedi Survivor does it well. They didn't get too big for their britches and make nasty, bloated areas filled with nothing. It's more of a God of War Ragnarok approach to the open zone model. And speaking of God of War, Jedi Survivor has its own version of God of War's Realm Tears, where you interact with some shimmery disturbance and are then faced with some combat challenge or platforming challenge. The fractured force memories even look very similar to a Realm Tear. I think this was a smart thing for them to take from God of War, and the inspirations didn't stop there. Jedi Survivor also just does the puzzle rooms from Breath of the Wild. Granted, Jedi Survivor's puzzles aren't as good, but they are still fun. And in the case of both the force memories and puzzle rooms, they are placed pretty sparingly, so you don't see these things littered all over the place and feel like, oh god, another one of these. It's actually exciting when you see them because they're used when needed. They aren't just used as busy work. It's already impressive that Respawn knew when and where to take inspiration, but it's another thing that they knew how much of it to do. Very impressive if you ask me. There are also people that you can talk to in the little town on the main planet Kobo, and it does help add a sense of life to the game. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not bustling like Cyberpunk or some shit, but that's not what Jedi Survivor is trying to do. But some of the people on Kobo do have side quests for you. They're called rumors, for that extra bit of incentive to explore worlds already begging to be explored, really. It's all just very fucking good. But now, I think I've touched on all of the gameplay of this game, so what's left? Why? The story, of course, my dear Watson. And don't worry, no spoilers, no specific details. So, much like the gifting of abilities throughout the game, the story is paced exceptionally well. And I'll keep this vague, but my favorite thing about the story has to be how it lures you in with this false intrigue, or not a false intrigue, rather they use truly intriguing content to distract you from what becomes even more intriguing content. I wish I could say more, but the game has not even been out for a week, so I'll let it breathe. But also, for the Star Wars people, we get to see new things and new Force abilities, most of which actually are already canon in Star Wars, but we've never gotten to see done in a canonical sense, you know? Not on screen or in animation or anything. Only in novelizations and other literature and stuff like that. And also, the story has weight and value and stakes, and it ends in a way that makes you want to see more. For as good as Jedi Fallen Order was, for as good as its story was, it was not this. This is better in every conceivable way. And what makes Jedi Survivor so scary impressive as a whole is that with all the praise I've given it, with everything good I've said about it, it felt like they left stuff out. It felt like they left themselves room to come with something better next time, like they held back on us on purpose. And that feels crazy to say about something this good. I mean, I don't know what to say. Any gripes I have with this game are minor. There's a couple of times where the game pulls a Dark Souls and has you walk back to the boss. The walks back aren't nearly as littered with annoying enemies as a FromSoft game, but it's still an annoying thing that exists purely to be annoying and nothing else. It's not a good habit, but it's not that bad or that often in this game. And as of right now, if you're playing in performance mode, the game cannot hold 60 frames. It just can't. I think there's a new patch that should be coming out by the time this video is out, so maybe that'll fix it. But both of those things are minor to me. There are some frame drops, but it's not egregious. Literally, the only thing that might dock anything from this game for me is a lack of innovation, possibly. However, one could argue that that base is covered by getting Star Wars and Jedi combat this right. There isn't actually another game where you fight quite like this because everything is so specific to the Star Wars universe and to being a Jedi. But whether you agree or disagree with all of that, those are my thoughts. If I had to put a number on it, am I gonna do it? I honestly think it's a 10, guys. It's a 10 out of 10. Amazing. Fucking amazing. At this point, this is easily the best Star Wars game ever made, and it might not even be close. Feel free to comment and tell me how 2003's Knights of the Old Republic is the best Star Wars game ever made. Just know I will not entertain that. I will not respond. Hard disagree. There's more of a case to be made for 2017's Battlefront 2, but you guys aren't ready to have that conversation. Anyway, there you have it. A lot of shit that I think about Jedi Survivor. It is absolutely essential if you're a Star Wars fan. You will not be disappointed. And listen, I have to say this for stupid people. 10 out of 10 does not mean perfect. It does not mean there is no issue with the game, that there is not a problem in sight. That is impossible. Perfection is impossible. What 10 out of 10 means is that the positives outweigh the negatives in such a profound way that the negatives are made largely irrelevant, okay? Just want to clear that up for people who like to act stupid. I should also say that I played on PS5, so, you know, that was my experience. If you were playing on PC and you've had like a shitty, horrible time, I feel that, and that's completely valid, and, you know, your score is your score, and that's fair. The PC version should have been better, but I'm just saying, I played on PS5. This was my experience. This is how I feel. These are my opinions. Just had to say that real quick. But okay, I'm done. As always, feel free to tell me how stupid and wrong I am in the comments, and please, please, please subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate it a lot. Like the video if you like the video. But until next time, I am Waifu Belector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and may the Force be with you. Goodbye.